Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel. This is Parashat Pinchas, Numbers 25:10 to 30 verse 1. This one's called, What's Luck Got to Do with It? Now, you've noticed I sound a little bit raspier than usual. I'm kind of just get the tail end of something. So if I sniffle a lot, if I take more sips of water, please forgive me, I'm fine. It's all good. All right. People still get colds and no one's dying from that. Anyway, I hope at this point we can understand that nothing is ever as cut and dry as it may seem. We see over and over again how a concept that is taken out of context can have a catastrophic outcome, especially when it comes to the 10 tribes. As we discussed last week, and I hope you remember this, Yosef is immune from the evil eye. Not because the evil eye can't touch him, but because the evil eye can't see him. But the moment that Yosef begins, not talking about Yosef as in Joseph, I'm talking about the 10 tribes represented by Joseph. The moment that Joseph begins to understand where he's from, begin to wake up, that's when you get the attention of the evil eye that comes through all the people that are around you. It's not a big dark tower like the Lord of the Rings, okay? It comes from people. Think about it. If I wouldn't be teaching, people would most likely not know who I am, at least not in this field. But since I am teaching and making these teachings public, I open myself up to the evil eye. There's several thousand people who are watching this, and, it could be a person who looks at me, disagrees with what I'm saying, and even in their mind wishes me harm or says something bad, even just not even speaking the words, but just thinking something negatively while looking at me. See, the danger is that's the evil eye. And the danger is that it's more towards the bearer of the evil eye than the recipient, since there is no requirement for me to even receive anything from a negative source. Were Israel even harmed a little bit by the evil eye of Balaam? No, they were not. No way. Was Balaam harmed because he gave the evil eye? Yes, he was. Came right back. In fact, he died by the same manner to which he wished to curse them. There is a whole supernatural story in the Midrash as to how this happened, but we don't need to go into that right now. Just know that it was Pinchas and the son of the tribe of Dan that led to his demise. Wondrous and fantastical things went down. Mamash was like out of a superhero movie. Another time, though. So again, just as a friendly warning to people, really, everything I tell you, I'm now currently practicing this myself. I'm making myself even more aware of this. Someone cuts me off, someone does this, someone does that, even just for a moment, because that is the evil eye that I'm giving them, and then I open myself up, okay? So what I say to you, I say to me. You're getting my weekly lessons from above, if you will. So as a friendly warning to people, when you use the evil eye to look at someone, just remember that same eye is looking right back at you. And because of the fact that you are using it, by default, it means that you are not sinless and thereby exposing yourself to get hit. It's a two-way street. And we saw at the end of the Parsha that we are the ones who are entirely responsible for the protection of God. And on the flip side, our exposure to outside forces. If we are sinless, nothing can harm us, right? This is what we saw. Nothing. Nothing can touch Israel. But when we carry any kind of sin, and let's be real, we all do, every last one of us in some way, shape, or form. No one should walk around thinking, I'm good. Nobody, not for a second. We expose ourselves to darkness. So all I'm saying is this. Let's be conscious and try to not add anything negative to our a pre-existing list, if you will. Case in point, the children of Israel and the Midianite women. Okay? They broke the very covenant that makes them who they are and us who we are. The brit, the circumcision, not only circumcision, it's like where you put it, right? It's the yesod, the foundation. When we transgress this command, sexual immorality, in every way, shape, or form, we literally and spiritually cut ourselves off from our Father in heaven. Yesod connects the Ze'ir Anpin to the Malchut. It connects the Torah here to this world. In other words, as long as this keeps on happening and no correction, no tikkun is made, there is no blessing in our deeds, as we just removed ourselves from the camp and the protection of Israel and from God's protection. Okay? We discussed this last year in Parashat Balak, the Iron Dome, as we, that was the teaching. That's what the teaching was called. And we also discussed Pinchas in last year's teaching called Immortal Beloved because of how he became Elijah, what he did to stop the plague. And we know how Elijah is zealous for the Lord. We went into the teaching last year into detail, but he goes right for the jugular, right? In fact, it was due to his prayer over some of the darkest forces in existence, which we're not going to get into here, that extinguished the plague. And it was because of this that God understood that he was too valuable to lose. And so he became immortal and held the fort until Moses is going to return to get things in order. There's a concept in Judaism. It says, let us leave it until Elijah returns. Okay? This means that if there's some sort of inconclusive issue in the Torah, some sort of halacha that there's no is it like this, is it like that? We don't understand what this is. The sages put it on hold until Elijah returns. Okay? And when will Elijah return, as we all know? He comes to pave the way for the coming of Mashiach ben David. That's when Elijah is going to return. Excuse me. Now, the Zohar says that it is certain that Pinchas is Elijah, specifically because of the verse in chapter 25, verse 11. It says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen heshiv et chamati me'al bnei Yisrael. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aharon, the Kohen, has turned my anger away from the children of Israel. Okay? But the Hebrew says heshiv, lehashiv, from tshuva, returned and not turned. He didn't turn it away. He brought it right back to the source. That means that not only does he have the power and the authority to turn the judgment, but to return it from whence it came. And why? Why does it give his lineage in the pasuk over here? Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen. Who was Aaron? Direct link to Aaron. Why did it have to go to his grandfather and not only to Elazar? Because he was the son of Elazar. Who was Aaron? Aaron was the mouthpiece of Moses, right? Moses would say the basic halacha, as it would be written, let's say, in the Torah, for example, okay, where we get things where I told you about the borders of Shabbat, that every man will stay in his place. And from that, we got the whole concept of eruv and how many paces you could take outside a walled city and so on and so forth. And that's already the oral Torah. So Moses would tell Aaron the written law. He would give him the law. Aaron, through Ruach HaKodesh, he would interpret and he would understand the halacha, the oral law. In other words, he would take something solid and he would implement it into their everyday lives. And this is what he would teach to the other Kohanim, who would then teach it to all the Levim. Remember, the Mishkan was in the middle and the Levites were camped all around. And then the rest of Israel were camped all around then. So it emanated from the Mishkan all the way out to the Levim and then all the way out to the children of Israel, who then in turn, the leaders of the children of Israel would teach it to their tribes and so on and so forth. And these are the same halachot that we follow today that they followed back in the day. And so the Zohar says that Elijah will come again, and this time he will actually explain the oral law in a way that we understand it completely. Because now we have a lot of things, let's say, you can't mix wool and linen. What is the purpose behind that? We don't know. We absolutely don't know, but we know that it came from the same source of things that we maybe could begin to make sense of, right? So this time when he comes back, he's going to explain it properly. Meaning that now we understand more or less what we have to do, but we don't fully, on higher levels of spirituality, understand exactly what it does. We have the inklings of understanding, just like going through the book of Leviticus. This does that, wow. This does that, wow. But I'm talking about the actual download, the understanding. That's what's going to happen then. See, right now we are considered in exile, the galut. Although we are physically sitting in Israel, this is, we're spiritually not here yet. As long as that thing is up there, and the third temple is not here, we're still in the final exile before the end. And so the Torah of Moses we received in the first iteration is one of kvad peh v'kvad lashon, heavy tongues and heavy lips, as Moses was during his lifetime. He goes to God, ani kvad peh v'kvad lashon. That's why Aaron will be your mouth, right? In other words, we are not on the level of its full understanding. But the Zohar makes it very clear, and this is by no means a new Torah, but rather new clarity and understanding to the already existing Torah. And that's why from this time in our Parsha, Pinchas, who is then Eliyahu Hanavi, keeps watch over the world and reports to God what's going on down here, which is why he serves as an immortal witness and testify to the fact that he has always been here and that the Torah that Moses will read and teach in the end of days is the same Torah that he read and taught in the wilderness, and nothing changed. So anybody that wants to cut pieces out or throw pieces away, I told you a long time ago, you are going to have to answer to Moses at some point. So, it was after all this happened, all these events, and after the plague, that God counted his children yet again. Now let's go to chapter 26, verse 1. It was after the plague that the Lord spoke to Moses and to Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the Kohen, saying, Take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and upward, following their fathers' houses, all that are fit to go to war in Israel. So, why? Why, right? Why did God count them again? Now, Midrash Rabbah says it's likened to a wolf that enters into the flock, and the shepherd wanted to see who is missing, okay? This is why we get a count. God loves us, each and every one of us. And the other one is, which he told Moses to count, he says, you go count them, is because the flock, the people, were not Moses' flock, right? I told you, if we go to Exodus 3:1, you can see Moses' entire story in the first pasuk. Moses was pastoring the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law. Moshe hayahoeh et tzon itro chotno, not even his own flock, right? Moses has been training for his whole life for the next 40 years in the wilderness. But now their time together has come to an end. This is their last year, or just a few months away from them entering Israel. And just like he was entrusted with them when he began, so too he must give a census when he returns them to the owner, or at least passes ownership on to Joshua, which also happens in this parsha. And you know that the owner of the flock is going to count every single one of them because their value is immeasurable. How much is a Jewish life worth? Infinity. So the count begins with Reuven in verse 5, and it ends with the total number in verse 51 that reads, These are those counted of the children of Israel, 601,730. Ele pekudei bnei Israel 600,730. Now, if you recall, the previous count, which was in Parashat Bamidbar, actually took place 38 years ago, right? Prior to this count right here. It would seem like, oh, God's counting them so much. Possibly, but that count 38 years ago was recorded, and this count 38 years later, before they're about to cross over, is recorded. We can find that in chapter 1, verse 46 in the book of Parashat Bamidbar. The sum of all those who were counted, 603,550. So now, I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This isn't the same amount, right? So we have 603,550, and I did minus 601,730. So we have, how many are missing? 1,820, exactly. 1,820 souls are missing over there. Now, does anyone know the significance of this number? I mean, don't feel bad. I didn't know it either. So I started doing some digging because we know that everything means something. And at this point, hopefully, we also know that we not only need to look at what's there, but also at what is not there, unlike the rest of the world. All the rest of the world, they see what they see. But the more is revealed to us, the more of a complete picture we see, the more of an understanding we get, the closer we get to our Creator. Thereby increasing our faith and our trust that not only does God have a plan and it is perfect, but that we are all part of that plan and God put his name in us. So when you see 1,820 children of Israel supposedly gone, know that they are never gone. For 1,820 is the number of times that God's name is mentioned in the Torah. We know that the very first census of the children of Israel was taken where? Literally, the children of Israel, of Jacob, in Exodus 1:5, that reads, "Now all those descended from Jacob were 70 souls and Joseph who was in Egypt." Right? So we have 70 souls. This was the point of origin, 70. So I did 1820 divided by 70, because they go into there. What do you get? 26. What is 26? This is the numerical value of the name of God that is 1,820 times in the Torah. This stuff is awesome. Now I'll give you another one with this number in it as well, just a little sugar on top. The word Adonai, okay, as in spelt out, Aleph, Dalet, Vav, Nun, Yud, my Lord, is mentioned 14 times in the Torah. And 14, the count in Hebrew is Yud Daled, right? So it's like Yud Aleph is 11, Yud Bet, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled. This is how we count in Hebrew. I mean, you have the numbers, right? But in the Torah, Perek, chapter 14 would be chapter Yud Daled. But Yud Daled spells Yad, hand. Now, if you take the numerical value of the word Adonai, my Lord, you get 65. Okay? So if you do 1820, which is the name of God, divided by the numerical value of Adonai, of my Lord, you get 28, which in Hebrew is kafchet. And what is kafchet? Koach, strength. So the Lord's hand is his strength, and it can be found within the mention of his name, which is incidentally the exact same number of the missing children of Israel. So even when you think that there is someone missing, they are not. That's like God cutting off his own metaphoric right hand. It's ridiculous. Remember, we discussed the generation of the wilderness will be the first to rise at the resurrection of the dead. Because even when they sinned and they died, their death acted as a complete atonement for their sin. And just so you understand the types of level that they're on compared to how we are today. When God is literally in your midst, both in and around you, if you sin, you immediately get cut off, which instantly redeems your soul. That's it. That's your punishment right there. It's a redemption. So it's a punishment, but it's not a punishment. It is, but it's not. You understand what I'm saying? It's a cleansing. If you deviated, God doesn't want to lose your soul. And so you lose your body, but not your soul, and you'll be back. Today, we sin left and right, with sins so much worse than what they did back then. I mean, we're basically living how they were with the Midianites every single day, right? The golden calf, every single day. Everything is a golden calf for us. Yet we're still here. We're still alive. What does that tell you? It tells you that God is not with us the way he was with that generation, because if he was, then we'd all be dead a long time ago. And yeah, You can still give the evil eye to someone who is not around. And so be very careful not to judge that generation, because they were the first of the first fruits of God who brought them out of Egypt to be a people for him. God chose those specific souls. Them, yeah, you and you and you and you. Them, not us. Them, we are here because of them. And we see it again here in Parashat Pinchas, right after the final census was given. These are those counted of the children of Israel, 601,730. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, next verse, verse 52, and then verse 53, to these you shall apportion the land as an inheritance in accordance with the number of the names. The number of the names. We're not numbers to God, okay? You're not just a number. We were given numbers before. That don't fly, all right? We each have a name. God gave us those names. And to these names, the land will be apportioned to. And if we know anything about how God works, we know that this is no accident, that these specific names were supposed to make it to the finish line and beyond. So we go on reading the next verse, verse 54, okay? To the large tribe, you shall give a larger inheritance, and to the smaller tribe, you shall give a smaller inheritance. Each person shall be given an inheritance according to his number. When it's number, it's name. We saw that very clearly. So far, so good, right? This makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay. The right amount of land, the perfect number of people. Okay, God, we're listening. We're taking notes. Go on, tell me more. All right, next verse. Only through Lot, shall the land be apportioned. They shall inherit it according to the names of their fathers' tribes. Okay, wait, what? I could have sworn I just heard him saying to cast lots to see who goes where and who gets what land. Must have misheard him. Let's read on. Verse 56. The inheritance shall be apportioned between the numerous and the few according to lots. So, yep, we heard it right the first time. We just couldn't believe that we were hearing it because it doesn't seem to be the way things work. So, why, God? And furthermore, how? I mean, what's luck got to do with it? So wait, you mean to tell me that God, who selected everything in advance, the laws, the people, the names, the portions, the years, the decrees, everything, every grain of sand, everything that is under the sun from the beginning of creation until the end of time, everything's been decided by God, and yet leave this important dividing of the promised land to the roll of a dice, so to speak. Now, there's a very interesting connection by Likutei Halachot. And they say this, and for this, hipil pul. What is pul? This is fate. Goral pul, casting lots. And that's why they called those days Purim, because they cast lots. Pul. Now, where is this from? This is from the book of Esther, chapter 9. Let's start reading from 24. For Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the adversary of all the Jews, had devised to destroy the Jews, and he cast the pool, he cast the lots. That is the lot to terrify them and destroy them. Who's going to get it first? How are they going to get it? And when she came before the king, Esther, and the king, whenever, remember, we learned in the Megillah, whenever it says the king, it is the king of kings. It is not the king Achashverosh. It says king Achashverosh, it's the king Achashverosh. Understand the levels that are coming up here. When she, Esther, came before the king, he commanded through letters that his evil device that he had devised against the Jews return upon his own head, and to destroy him and his sons on the gallows. Therefore they called these days Purim, after the name Pool. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, and what they saw concerning this matter and what happened to them, the Jews ordained and took upon themselves and upon their seed and upon all those who joined them that is not to be revoked, to make these 2 days according to their script and according to their appointed time every year. That's why Purim, we celebrate Purim. And these days shall be remembered and celebrated throughout every generation, in every family, every province, and in every city. And these days of Purim shall not be revoked from amidst the Jews, and their memory shall not cease from their seed. And what is the story of Purim and the book of Esther, if not God taking a visible, pun intended, step back and allowing his children to make the decisions here? Though God's name is not mentioned a single time in this book, yet we see God's hand in every single twist and turn all throughout. If the lots were not cast, the outcome would have been different. If Esther had not risked her life to come before the king, because she also physically came before King Ahasuerus, if she did not risk her life to come before the king when she was not summoned, the outcome would have been different. If Mordecai the Jew would not have defied the Sanhedrin, the outcome would have been different. That's right. Mordecai was one of the 70 Sanhedrin members who were sitting in the Medo-Persian Empire at the time. He warned them that trouble was coming, but they wouldn't listen. Oh, we're comfortable here. We got the nice house and everything. Probably more with the Persian accent. Anyway, just like they didn't listen in 1933 Europe, and just like they're not listening today in 2020 globally. I do not say this lightly, okay? I have family and friends across the United States. Get out. Literally, one man stood alone against the most powerful Jewish body in existence and said, I ain't going out like that. And he did something about it. He acted alone against every other man over there and saved them as a result. And then Esther did something about it. And they sent out messengers who rode really fast on horses, but it was like they were flying on wings of eagles, to override the decree to destroy our people, fulfilling the commandment in the Torah of, he who rises to kill you, rise earlier to kill him. And where is this taken from? Because it's very relevant right now for what's happening in the good old US of A. Exodus 22:1. Listen up. If while breaking in, the thief is discovered and he is struck and dies, it is as if he has no blood, meaning the blood is on his own head. You're clear. So, in other words, if someone breaks into your home, my fellow Americans, Exodus 22:1, if someone comes after you, Exodus 22:1, it is your constitutional right and your God-given right. Defend yourselves and apologize to no one. I digress, but only a little. The bottom line is this. Even if something seems like it is by chance, it's not, especially when it comes to the Jews. In fact, exclusively when it comes to the Jews. What is Goral? Goral is fate. It is going to be whatever it is, and there's nothing that we can do to change that, right? I mean, that's what fate is. It is your fate. It is your destiny. But you can change that. Anyway, your fate. Now, this was true throughout the world until who came along? Our forefather Abraham. Genesis 15:1. After these incidents, the word of the Lord came to Abram, in a vision saying, Fear not, Abram, I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great. And Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me, since I am going childless? And the steward of my household is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no seed, and behold, one of my household will inherit me. Eliezer was keen on doing that. We know that. Okay, so first of all, we discussed this in depth back in Parashat Lech Lecha. It's called Trial by Fire, what he saw, where he went. But we're going to add a little bit to it right now because it's a great example of the point that we're trying to get at. Abraham was not wrong when he told God that Eliezer was going to get all his stuff. Since he saw it, he knew it. This was his fate. How did he know? Because he saw it in the constellations, the stars, the mazalot. Mazal is luck, okay? But it's not luck like you think. He saw that Avram, okay? Avram is not going to have seed that is going to inherit him. In fact, if you notice that when he fathered Ishmael, he was still Abram and not Abraham. Did anyone notice this? Just when I was doing the studying for this, it just hit me. How many times I read this and I learned something new? I never realized that before. You understand why Ishmael and Isaac are not equal? His spiritual and physical DNA had yet to change. Only once Abram and Sarai received the hay from the four-letter name of God does he see that Avraham and Sarah will indeed have a son, and from him will become a mighty nation. You see, back in the day, everyone used to go according to the stars. Many people today do as well, okay? I mean, you got Nostradamus, right? And again, it all goes on today, right? There are many astrologists who are on point when it comes to people's lives, and they are precise down to the very hour. They can tell you exactly what's going to go down. When it comes to the nations, when it comes to the Gentiles, yes, this cannot change. This is your fate. This is what is going to happen to you. I'll tell you a story one day of my several visits to these people in a previous life. I'll share that with you. I'll be happy to, because it's hilarious. Your lot is your lot. But when it comes to the Jewish people, when it comes to the children of God, God's firstborn son, Israel, only the individual has the power to change this. You can change your fate. How do we know this? It's the other day that has the word Pur or Purim in it. And it is Yom Kippur or Yom Kippurim, Yom HaKippurim, also known as Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. Chazal say that the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippurim, is like Purim. In other words, Purim actually holds a higher spiritual symbolism even than this holy day, which is the Holy of Holies. How so? We sing this on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right? I think we discussed this, but I'm not going to sing, I can't. Berosh Hashanah yikatevun, ubeyom tzom kippur yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah, it will be written, and on Yom Kippur fast day, on the fast day of Yom Kippur, it will be sealed. Okay, this is when the book is sealed. And then we go into who will live and who will die, how will they live, how will they die, who will gain, who will lose, and so on. We read all these things, right? I think I gave a very emotional thing because of what happened last Rosh Hashanah. Anyway, the point is that on that judgment day, Rosh Hashanah is judgment day, your fate is written for the entire year, and then you have 10 days to kind of sway God. And this is also, just so you know, the beginning of Job, when the sons of God gather around and so does Satan. That's Rosh Hashanah. Okay, everybody, let's open the books. Let's start giving accounts. And Satan's having a blast over there. He's the MC of the party. So, Yom Kippur says your fate is sealed. Or is it? If it is fated for you to die on a certain day because of a transgression that you are about to commit, or a transgression that you have committed in the past and did not make a correction or an atonement for it, should you do teshuvah beforehand, you will have canceled out that decree, and so on. Furthermore, you might also suffer in this life for the sins of your father, up to 4 generations back. We know this because this is what God said. But as we also discussed, where if you think this is unfair, it's actually kindness and a mercy, since we now have the merit to correct the sins of our fathers. Think about that. That's amazing, right? We discussed that Shuvah brings you back in time. We're outside of time. We change things. It's like going back to the future. It's a kid, smarty. You might lose all your belongings and become flat broke, which according to halacha, it's as if you are a dead man. But guess what? If that happens to you, that means that you just made a tikkun for a potential death sentence. God was merciful and said, you know what? I'll take your money, but not your life. And your kind and loving and merciful Heavenly Father deemed it so. You just walked away with your life and thereby given another chance to turn things around. So a decree has been made. This is true. And God does not go back on his word. This is also true. But he always gives the person the opportunity to do tshuva because God is awesome. The city of Nineveh. The story of Jonah. Jonah came to the city and gave them the opportunity to do tshuva, or God was going to destroy them in 40 days. What was the 40 days? It was Yom Kippur. I think it was Rosh Chodesh Elul. Av Elul. Yes, it was Rosh Chodesh Av that he came 40 days before Yom Kippur. He said in 40 days on Yom Kippur, they don't know what Yom Kippur is, but on Yom Kippur, God's going to take you out. And where was the city of Nineveh, which was a 3-day walk in any direction, 3-day walk. It was a big city. It wasn't like it was a city. We don't have those today. It was like a country. Anyway, it was in Assyria. And why was Assyria so important for God to send his Jewish prophet into the lion's den, the sworn enemy of Israel? Do we know why Israel and Assyria, not Syria, Assyria, Ashur, why they had a beef? What did they do? They were the ones that kidnapped the 10 tribes. Now don't get me wrong. Jonah came 100 years before the kidnapping would take place. But if there would be no Assyria, there would be no kidnapping of the 10 tribes. Something has to be dealt out. Otherwise, there's obliteration. God did not want that. So maybe my kids will be kidnapped. I'll hide them amongst the enemy and then I'll bring them back instead of, and that will atone for the sins. Okay? So let's just go back a bit. Jonah was resurrected from the dead by Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, Pinchas from our Parsha. Okay? Hear me now. Elijah was threatened by King Ahab, the wicked king of the kingdom of Israel. God said, there's never been a more wicked king of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, after which God said, enough. The prophet Jonah was then sent to Nineveh, who would later go to kidnap the 10 tribes due to their wickedness. So, does this all seem by chance to you? Does it seem like it was a random chain of events? No, look at God's hand in every twist and turn. You don't see it because you're on the ground. But you got to take a step back and you could see the full picture. We've already learned that God planned the world according to the decisions that we would make. So now if we read the verse again from our Parsha, to the large tribe you shall give a larger inheritance, and so to a smaller tribe you shall give a smaller inheritance. Each person shall be given an inheritance according to his number. Only through Lot shall the land be apportioned. They shall inherit it according to the names of their fathers' tribes. The inheritance shall be apportioned between the numerous and the few according to lots. Al pi hagoal. Does that make any more sense now? Perhaps we don't fully understand what's going on here. God is saying that to the larger tribes shall be given larger portions, and the smaller tribes shall be given smaller portions. So far, so good? Makes sense. Okay. But then how can we cast lots as far as what tribe goes where and what kind of portion they're going to get? This defies logic. But that's exactly the point. So going back to the mefarshim that was said before of the halacha, likutei halacha, which says lots is something that we do not understand. Because when anyone gets to a point that is inconclusive, They cast lots. Okay, what do we do now? Let's leave it up to fate. Let fate decide, right? Many people say that. It is understood that lots without understanding comes from the aspect of what can only be translated as simulated power. In Hebrew, it's koach hamedameh. Dmeh is like dumut, like an image of. Medumeh, metziut meduma is, what do you call it? The reality, simulated reality, virtual reality, right? Meduma, to be like. So this is a simulated power, this fate thing. So once logic is gone, a simulated or pretend power remains. But when it comes to the land of Israel, which this is exactly what they're talking about, which is the epitome of this simulated power, through this power, we merit a renewal of the world. Whoa, I'll explain. To the outside world, they would call this nothing more than luck. But we don't believe in luck. We don't believe in fate. We know that each of God's children has the power to change. We have the power to change ourselves as well as the world around us. If you are not of Israel, your path is already sealed. Just do your thing. And there's nothing that you can do to change that. Unless you, if you are on the outside, you come to the inside and rise higher than the stars that give the power to the world as God took Abraham above the stars. Once you rise higher than the stars, meaning the heavenly hosts, you see things clearly, understanding that the only thing that is above you is God himself. When that happens, you know for a fact, not an opinion, but it's a matter of fact, that there is no chance. There are no accidents. You know that when it comes to God's people, only God himself governs. Every dollar you make, every success or failure, everything you do is under God, and it's all counted and it's all written ahead of time. This is why we are taught never to puff ourselves up by our status or by achievements or our talents, because they don't even belong to us. They were given to us. We know that it was all given to us by God for his purpose, and it can just as easily be taken away. So if we succeed at anything, we might just forget and think for a moment that it had to do with something other than God, that maybe he didn't see, that perhaps it slipped by him. Come on, we should know better. And so what does this have to do with the land of Israel and the renewal of the world? Let's get the obvious out of the way, okay? And go with what we know. Where is it all gonna go down in the end? Right here, in Israel, okay? All the Torah is focused on Israel. Most of the mitzvot in the Torah have to do with the land of Israel. It's the first fruits of Israel. It's God's land. It's God's people. It's God's chosen place. It's everything is Israel. Okay, fine. So we know this. But as we read, all the tribes, not just Judah. This is why I'm here. Right now, there are tremendous waves of Jews who are waiting with their passports and their bags in hand just to come and make Aliyah. Right now, those are the ones that see what's happening in the world. It's because God's children are waking up. As for the lost tribes, you are being awakened as well. I know this. We talk. And just hear me for a second. We are doing what we can, okay? We are doing what we can from the ground here in order to make that happen for you. We need your prayers and we need your support in order to make this happen. Because none of this is happening without you, okay? Let's be real. It's all the tribes. So be patient with us, please. Don't be afraid that you might be locked out or anything like that. If you are Israel, then Israel are God's children, and God does not abandon his children. Now, more to come in due time. I humbly ask again for your patience and for your trust, okay? That's it. We're doing what we can. So back to our topic. These are the things that we know. Everything I just told you, you all know this. I didn't tell you anything new. We need everybody. But what don't we know? Or rather, what does the world not know that Judah knows? I'll tell you what the world does not know that Judah knows. Judah meaning the Jews here in the land. They don't know what it's like to be here in Israel over the past 72 years, or what it's like to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces and put your life on the line as a teenager. What it's like to walk in the streets and call everyone your brother and literally mean it. What it's like to weep and mourn for every single Israeli who dies anywhere around the world. What it's like to deal with the threat of Islam from within our own borders, forget about all our surroundings. What it's like to deal with the energy that is anti-Semitism that is coming from every corner of the earth. What it's like to witness the miracle that is the land of Israel and the state of Israel that has been barren for 2,000 years until we made it our home again, officially in the eyes of man. What it's like to struggle to defend your misinformed secular brothers and sisters here who you know are in the wrong from self-righteous Gentile Bible know-it-alls. Yeah. And yet, when we see even one Jew do teshuvah, we know that there is still a chance for the rest of us. What it's like to fight wars against surrounding enemies outnumbering you 100 to 1, with no one coming to your aid, by the way. Do we see open miracles? Is manna falling from heaven? Is fire falling from the sky to strike down our enemies? No. We go to work, we plow our fields, and we pray for rain. We go do battle, we go to war, and we pray for victory. And so, where's God? Well, he's everywhere. Haven't you been paying attention? So I'm going to read the last verse from the Targum one more time. But when it comes to the land of Israel, which is the epitome of this simulated power, through this power, we merit a renewal of the world. This power which is not only faith in God, but complete trust in him, that he sent us here and he hid himself. Two people can witness something incredible, the same thing. One is going to call it luck, while the other will be on his face praying and thanking God. What's the big deal if we see the splitting of the sea today? Would there be anyone who doesn't believe in God then? Of course not. That's precisely why once Messiah comes on the scene, we accept no new converts. Oh, now you want to come in. All right, because you were hating on us a minute ago. What were you doing all this time? Who were you following? Oh, right, the people who told you that you need to circumcise your heart and you're good, right? The same ones who abolished the law of Moses. Okay. The same ones who told you not to follow your heart and enter into the fold which you belong. Get away from people who speak badly about the Jews, about Israel, and about the law of Moses. I'm telling you this right now. The authority that was given to us can be seen right here as well. Talking about in the Parsha. If you've ever taken a look at the map of Israel during the time of Joshua about how it was divided, you'll see that the borders are anything but straight, right? I mean, like Judah's squiggly lines over here. Shimon is inside Judah. There's Benjamin kind of curving over there. And then you got Dan and you got Menashe and so on and so forth, right? Why is that? Why aren't they straight lines like the U.S. borders, right? Everything is nice, kind of straight, most of them. But it's straight lines. Okay, this seems like a grid type of thing. Because if a larger tribe, again, they were casting lots, according to the word of God. Because if a larger tribe was slotted a smaller plot of land, while a smaller tribe was allotted a larger plot of land. The smaller tribe would give of its land to the larger tribe, thereby expanding the borders of the larger tribe. It's not like, here's my land. This land is your land. This mine is my land. From California to New York Island, right? Okay. You see, the borders have nothing to do with the number, right? It's the names. It's not even the tribes. It has everything to do with the tribesmen. Your borders were only as big as you were. Make your borders only as big as you are, people. You get into less trouble that way. Trust me. In other words, brother was working together with brother, together with God, in order to renew the world. We're setting the ground. Each tribe cast lots, and then each family cast lots. And by doing so through this power, we merit the renewal of the world. This power is the complete faith and trust in the invisible God, yet the ability to see and acknowledge him everywhere. And so every last man, woman, and child was exactly where they were supposed to be, according to what? Luck? Come on. What's luck got to do with it? Well, we're done. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. See you next time. Bye-bye.